the rights to approve anything that results from this application rests with you, the decision makers. Okay, so this is not a top-down process, it's a bottom-up process. And at some point, it's your right to either approve it or not approve it. There's no state requirement that you approve the result. The obligation of the project is to create the plan, not approve it. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Does the board have any questions of Mr. Brown? Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to address on this?
Hi, my name is Catherine Lambie, and I live in West Point. I've lived there for almost 30 years. I'm the director of the Blue Mountain Coalition for Youth and Families. And I just marvel at the amount of time people have to do research on the internet these days. We have lots and lots and lots of great statements and figures. I don't have that kind of time. I work every day with families and kids in West Point, and that's my passion. And I hear a lot of talk about taking care of future generations and what we're spoiling for future generations and on and on. How about dealing with our youth now? I read this grant, and I am really excited about the possibilities of reflection and change that it can bring to our county. How about demonstrating positive and intelligent civic involvement for our youth now by participating in this, by being strong leaders and voting for this? And I feel that I encourage you to not be bullied by a handful of ideologues that are very provincial in their thinking. It's really sad to me to see that people do not feel a stronger connection to the whole planet and the whole world. A lot of things are going on out there, outside of Calaveras County. A lot of wise decisions are being made, and this is an opportunity to be part of that movement, and I hope that you take it. And again, I thank you for your patience and your courtesy today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Martha, what was Martha's last name, please?
Lambie, L-A-M-B. My name is Vicki Sneed-Hinkle, and I don't have a lot to add except that I am most definitely in support of the application of the Sustainable Communities Planning Grant. I agree with one of the previous submissions that it would be fiscally irresponsible not to attain funds that are available to us. And comparing bonds to grants is tantamount to comparing apples to oranges. If we can, as a poor rural county, obtain funds that can help us maintain and sustain the beauty and the general ambiance of our county, that is why we all live and love this county, live in and love this county, then I don't see how anyone can, in good conscience, counter such a move. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address this item?
My name is Jane Childress, and I've been a resident of McCullamy Hill for over 30 years. And I just want to say the parts that I've read of this grant make total sense for our county, and I strongly support it and would request your approval. The part that water conservation is even mentioned in it to help with our water situation here in the county should be a high priority. So that makes sense to me too. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on this issue? Okay. I'm going to bring it back to the board for any questions or comments that the board would like to make. Mr. Thomas?
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to lead this off, I think. I've recognized that there are a lot of people here with passionate views on both sides of this issue. I've been looking for seeds of proof that there is a giant conspiracy. These folks that have come to express their support for this, I've been looking closely to see evidence of your socialism and communist tendencies, and I frankly haven't seen any. So I don't want to pontificate on this at all. I'm very much in support of going for the grant for all the obvious reasons that we've heard here. I've heard some comments that we shouldn't go for it, and I'm not buying it. So I'm very much in favor.
Mr. Tuffanelli?
I'm going to thank everybody for coming. I didn't realize it was this controversial. We have a whole crowd here. I haven't seen this many people since we had an item from Valley Springs Community Plan on the agenda. The room is divided, but my opinion has not changed from 2 weeks ago. I will not be supporting this. I don't feel it's appropriate venue to spend the Prop 84 funds. We had an issue before us last week where UMRA gave us a presentation, and I voted for that because I thought that was a proper avenue for those funds to be expended in this county. So for those reasons, I will not be supporting this.
Mr. Walensky?
I'm not going to be so brief in my comments because so much has come up here today, and I think it's important that somehow, with so many people finding their information from different sources, that somehow in a small county like this, we should at least be able to find some basis in fact for the things that we do. And so I'd like to just mention a few things that are important to me in framing my vote. The first idea is that we have spent the last many years since the triple flip talking about unfunded mandates bestowed by, for various reasons, some good, some bad, and some truly ugly, by the state of California on local government. And now comes along this novel idea that state funds might pay for a state mandate. And all of a sudden we're divided on that subject, where it just baffles me that we could have gotten this turned around on that subject alone. Secondly, the myth of there being no Prop 84 nexus. I've spent the last 5 years working in Prop 84 context, and what we have here is that Prop 84 had a number of features. And while it was called, you have to, on a ballot, you had to have some kind of, minimal number of words to title your initiative. I want to make sure that people understand that among the things that go with Prop 84 include sustainable communities and climate change reduction, safe drinking water and water quality projects, flood control, state water planning and design, protection of rivers, lakes and streams, forest and wildlife conservation, protection of beaches, bays, and coastal waters, not our issue, apparently. Parks and nature education facilities round that out. Those are the components of the proposition that the people of California voted, and that's some of the money that we are requesting here to support this Sustainable Communities Planning Initiative, which, by the way, has been I'm grateful for the staff that actually took our advice in the last round and put some local imprimatur on this, where we actually are dealing with forests and communities, where we actually are dealing with water planning, which is a big issue in my district. I don't know about you all, but where I come from, we've got problems. We're running out of water in some places, and we're drilling deeper and deeper, and actually neighbors are running other people out of water. Wouldn't it be nice to know a little bit more about our groundwater situation? I just think it's it's a no-brainer. I have a number of other things. What this gets done on the local level is that something that has eluded us for 30 years, the idea that our general plan and zoning code ought to have some relationship, and all the litigation that's happened and all the disputes that have happened and all the neighborhood problems that have happened around that difference about our inability to reconcile them, this would actually provide resources that we do not have in this county to accomplish that. We have the resources to create a general plan, and what we're left with is some local obligation to reconcile our zoning code with it. How are we going to get that done without some support in a fiscal situation as we have now? It's not just a legal obligation, and it's not just a mandate. It's something that we have an obligation to our citizens to untangle and fix. It doesn't work to ignore it for years. It doesn't work to say, well, we don't have the money for it. We should be active and proactive in doing something about that problem alone. And when we talk about business development, which is also economic development is a big piece of this proposal, when we talk about that, doesn't zoning have something to do with attracting businesses to a county? If you don't have industrial zoning, if you do not have a place to put, everybody says, you can't buy a pair of underwear and socks in this county. Well, what does our zoning say about that? It's a little confusing. If I was a business trying to move in and do some level of retail or industrial work, I'd be presented with a bafflement of general plan designations and zoning contradictions. Frankly, I don't think we're even dressed up for this party. And this will help us get, for those who care about economic development and jobs, this is a ticket to move toward that end. On the water systems audit, we've already talked a little bit about that. For wildland fire protection, how we deal with our forests, and the neglect and abysmal, there's a laissez-faire attitude on the part of our government on the federal lands in this county. Federal lands surround 5 of my towns, and there's been nothing that happened in that area, and we are dressed up and ready to burn, and we do rank nationally as the interface. I'm really grateful for Mr. Kelly because those are the figures and statistics that we've been working with, that we are more ready to burn with more people in the way than virtually any other. We're in the top 20 in these western states. Calaveras County. What are we going to do about it? How many of you have a wildland protection plan that's community-based, which is the ticket for funding? The answer is only one town in this county has that, and they're already working in the forest right now with local contractors going back to work. Could we expand that and get people working on that kind of thing just for public safety issues? I hope so, and I'm grateful that that's been put into this proposal thanks to our planning department's good due diligence. Now, on myths. The United Nations can't even stop genocide in Darfur, the weakest, poorest country on this planet. What makes us think that the UN has a capacity to undermine the sovereignty of the United States right here in Calaveras County? And even if they wanted to, why the heck would they choose this place out of all the myriad of other counties and other places to go? I find that phantasmagorical, and I'm tired of hearing it, and I don't care what the internet says. It may be true that UN Rule 21 uses the word sustainable, but that doesn't make this a UN plot right here, right now in Calaveras County. In fact, I don't believe one of us on this board has ever read Rule 21. Now, here's a couple other things that go with this. The idea that people who disagree with each other should be called names and pejoratives is a breach of civility that our founding fathers probably engaged in themselves, actually, as I read the early texts. But I would suggest to you that calling people communists and socialists, after communism has pretty much gone the way of the dodo bird in all kinds of places except for, say, North Korea, that invoking that in this particular discussion is not only inappropriate, it's rude. I come from 17 generations of Americans who came here on the second boat after the Mayflower, and they fled persecution, religious persecution, where they were, and they had a chance to practice their beliefs right here in this country. And today we still have a pretty good shot at that, although there are all kinds of debates, and that's probably a good thing. And this has been one of the more balanced debates of the last few months. And for those of you who are kind of new to this process, thanks for being here, because we've been hearing the same few voices. But calling people names, I got names, I could call people names, but it devalues the dialogue on the subject matter at hand. And it also distorts people's ability to think clearly, and ultimately they wind up acting out of fear. And I know everybody invokes fear. Two great motivations in human experience. There's fear and there's hope. You know, that's pretty much what we do things around, and my hope is that you'll all think less about the fear and a little bit more about what we're trying to do. Now, there was a quote which I actually brought with me, and I thank Susan for bringing this. Development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. That's sustainability. What's the alternative? Unsustainability? Guess what? In the lifestyle that we as Americans live, if the rest of the world, which is fast catching up to it, China, India, Brazil, if everybody had the same lifestyle that we together appreciate as Americans, even though we've stopped making things, and even though we've shipped most of our stuff abroad, if we all led the same basic lifestyle, we would need at least 12 planets of this size to be able to sustain ourselves. That's the issue today in relation to the next generation. Can we continue to take more in wild disproportion to what the planet has to offer? That's a fundamental subject that comes up in this kind of moment where we need to take a look at what we're doing. Now, we can disagree about global climate change, all right? Somebody cites 31,000 scientists and another cites thousands of other scientists. I actually believe this is mostly settled outside of Calaveras County and probably a number of other counties in this country. Seems like the rest of the world's kind of figured this out. But even if we disagree about climate change and the causes for it, and whether the ice cores actually show a relationship between carbon in the atmosphere and climate in the day. And I think there's a whole lot of discussion that we need to have after this particular dialogue, because there's a lot of science on that one. So, but even if we didn't, wouldn't we agree that it is a really bad idea to have half this county commuting for jobs to places far, far away? Wouldn't we agree in California that having thousands of motorists gridlocked on freeways, running their engines without getting anywhere, is a sign of bad planning? And shouldn't we try to come up with something better than fighting wars and charging people enormous amounts for what gas and energy is left? I don't think that we would have a lot of disagreements in this room, at least I hope, between the different sides in the room, that it's a good idea to spend as little in foreign dependence as we can. Supervisor Tryon has spoken articulately about the effects of rural sprawl as it affects these communities in things like our roads. If we continue planning to string out along roads, we'll never be able to fix them. And that affects our kids. And when we have a bunch of kids die on funky roads, which has happened in the town of Mountain Ranch, and when we have the kinds of events that we have to take a look at our ability to fix the places that we have, not just for us, but again, thinking about what we're leaving for tomorrow. People have raised the issue of ethical and moral values. Yes, we're all talking about that. And each of us comes from our own beliefs, our own system of values, how we were raised, what our mama told us when we were 5. All of us come with great passion about our values. But to insult one another, I don't believe there's a single person here from any side that doesn't believe what they're saying. And I think that the integrity, I don't question the integrity of anybody on any side of this. But I do think it would be better if we had a kind of dialogue, again, that doesn't result in names or name-calling or labeling of one another. It's too small a county for that. Finally, On competition, Amador, part of Amador, has decided to go its own way. I believe that one of the best elements of this, because so many of our issues are regional and so many of our issues require coalitions of interest to come together and interagency cooperation rather than competition, that the idea that our water agencies and a couple of counties could actually come together around a document that is this well thought through and responsive to issues that we face, I find that to be good, but it also advantages our competition with places like Amador, one part of Amador that says, well, we'll run off with this ourselves. I believe that regional effort is required. It is not a dereliction of our responsibility. It is finally living up to our ability to work with others to solve problems we cannot solve ourselves. We share watersheds with other counties. It's time we began working with them instead of suing them, which is, by the way, one of our previously exercised options. I will vote for this with enthusiasm, and I would be honored to make the motion after this is done.
Mr. Child.
Okay, well, first let me just summarize my comments by saying I disagree with everything Steve said except rural sprawl. I said to bring this, 2 weeks ago or whenever we talked about it, because we do need to update the zoning code, and we do need to meet state of climate change and environmental rules for the general plan. But when it came 2 weeks ago, we did not have the planning grant application in front of us. It was included in the board packet for the meeting here today. And I must say, I am, I guess, almost just sort of appalled at the scope and the scale of what this planning document requests, or the vision of this planning document, as far as how resources should be allocated within the county and within the state of California. I'm always amazed that we can have such an economic debacle nationally, and there's huge pushback. But we have the economic debacle known as California, and there seems to be so little pushback. I don't understand that. I'm tired of turning on the TV, and I listen to the business channels in the morning and evening. Bloomberg on 128 and CNBC on, channel 18, and Fox Business News on channel 130. And I don't know how many times I've turned on the business channels, and they're having a special on California, the first failed state. And I'm thinking, holy smokes, how did we get to this level of ridicule? I mean, it's ridicule. I mean, you have the unions that basically substantially destroyed the auto industry in the state of Michigan. And Michigan isn't the first failed state that they're holding special TV programs on the business channels. It's California. And every time, we talk about, or they talk about sort of national policies, they a lot of times they bring up California as just the epitome of how not to do it. And now we're getting it in spades. I mean, if you think we're failed now, wait till we implement these objectives. And I mean, to me, this is sort of the blueprint for oppressive government. It's almost on the verge of forced relocation as to how we're going to live, where we're going to live. I mean, they even want to change the, I'm not for rural sprawl. I think we should try to direct residential development to the community centers, but they want to totally redo the community centers. I mean, they want us basically living in some environmentalist idea of utopia, where we don't drive our cars, where we live in tall buildings and we're basically all there in condominiums of some nature. I mean, this is a total revamp of the American dream, and it's a total abolition of the free market. In the marketplace, prices direct how capital should be allocated. This is a program that destroys the pricing mechanism. This is basically all government edict. This is, when this finally gets implemented, we're going to have a command and control economy in California, not a market economy driven by individual choice. They keep, as typical government, they keep referring to this as an action plan for prosperity. This isn't an action plan for prosperity. I mean, if this were an action plan for prosperity, boy, would we be prosperous right now. And we're not. And this is just doubling up or doubling down or whatever on a whole bunch of failed economic policies. It talks, it's always sort of surprising how we just have this continued war on the automobile. And I don't think the environmentalists will ever be happy until they absolutely abolish the internal combustion engine and automobiles. And quite frankly, I am a skeptic when it comes to man-made global warming. I think there's so many variables that go into a global climate that I don't think we have a clue as to that we can just sort of pinpoint what is happening. We're very good at measuring things. That's a lot different than cause and effect. We can tell you what the level of the carbon is, or carbon dioxide. We can tell you, and we can measure, and we can measure, and we can measure. But that's a long ways from cause and effect. After that, you just get into hypothesis as to what this data means, or what a change in data means. When you get into global climate change, I mean, you're talking about the sun, you're talking about the moon, you're talking about ocean currents, you're talking about volcanic activity, you're talking about just all kinds of things that nobody has a very good handle on. What they are is basically hypothesis, and we're running off a cliff. Based on a bunch of hypotheses that may or may not be true, and even if they are true, and there is some man-made component to it, it will play out over a very long period of time. This looks like we're in some sort of crisis mode that the planet's going to end in 5 years if we don't implement all of this. Well, that makes no sense at all. If you look at the front of the planning application, and there's all this on it, and this is all what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be eligibility requirements, which are mandatory to apply for the grant, consistent with state planning priorities, reduces greenhouse gas emissions on a permanent basis. That's one of the criteria, is mandatory criteria for applying for the grant. We don't have a clue what that even begins to look like. Collaboration requirement. Then it goes on with other subheads. It doesn't say mandatory after it, but it's under the mandatory one above it, so I don't know if they're mandatory or not. They all have X's by it. Some don't, but the ones that do are demonstrate collaboration, community involvement, address climate change impact, serves as best practices, leverages additional resources, serves as economically disadvantaged community. 20% economic development, EDC, Corp, I guess, set aside. Improve air and water quality, promote public health, promote equity. That's all for me, social equity. But it just says promote equity. What they're saying is social equity, so we're going to have a whole bunch more income redistribution of programs, whether it be affordable housing or whatever. I mean, we're in the mess we're in right now, quite frankly, because Congress and the income redistribution has made housing an entitlement. And that entitlement blew up in our face, and now we're paying the horrible consequences of that effort at a housing entitlement for all Americans. Increased affordable housing, increase infill and compact development, revitalize urban and community centers, protect natural resources and agricultural lands, reduce automobile usage and fuel consumption, improve infrastructure systems, promote water conservation, promote energy efficiency and conservation, strengthen the economy. That one always gets me. Strengthen the economy. What we need is more command and control and government rules and regulations over our lives to strengthen the economy. That's appalling. I mean, when I spoke 2 weeks ago, all I wanted to do was see if we could get some money to update the zoning and the general plan. I didn't know we were going to, revisit the, redesign the whole economic system for the state of California. And that, in many ways, is what we're about here. I think there's 6 objectives. The first is a climate action plan, and then it has a whole bunch of stuff for that. The second is wildlands fire protection component, and there's a bunch of stuff for that. And Steve talks about, oh my gosh, we have to help the forest. We have to help the forest. Why are the forests in horrible shape? Because we have a whole bunch of environmental policies that are implemented through the government that have failed, and so we have catastrophic wildfires in the forest. And so we always just have one program, government program, to address government failure after another. We don't ever say, well, maybe we should get the government out of doing so much and let the private sector work and let property rights work. Instead, we just have another government program to address the government failure of the first program. You have a water systems audit component where they're going to come in and actually mandate how much water you can use per capita. An economic development component, a healthy communities component, and they have stuff in here where they're blaming obesity on the fact of how our houses are, and if we had more walking communities, there'd be less obesity. This is under the public health part. I mean, they want to control everything. I mean, we're not going to have any individual liberties left by the time this program gets implemented, and they fully intend to implement it. A development zoning code update. There it is. So. I'm not in favor of it at all. I'm just appalled that something this broad and far-reaching could be put forward. And in my opinion, if we start down this path, I don't know how you stop it. Quite frankly, the state's going to start us down the path whether we adopt the grant or not, most likely. But that's why we have elections, and maybe come next January, as a consequence of November's elections, maybe we won't be looking at the same level of destruction that we're looking at here today. So I will not be supporting the application.
I didn't know $1.6 million was going to do all those things that Supervisor Tryon said they were going to do. I have read the bill. Thank you very much. This grant does not mandate anything. This grant just gives strategies for the different entities to either incorporate or not incorporate as their respective bodies choose them to do. One, this is also a regional partnership. Two, CEQA requires some of this already, and many people in here have already been complaining for years about CEQA and whether people should or should not do environmental impact reports. And under Senate Bill 375, when it finally winds its way down to counties like Calaveras or to rural counties, will help in the CEQA process for streamlining and or exemption from certain CEQA requirements, because we'll have strategies available to us if we choose to. In 1974, Nixon said we need to use sustainable energy, and we need to find ways to help with our future so we're not relying on it. Well, you know what? We're still talking about it. And we have to look to the future. There's a new dynamic going on. There's a new industrial revolution going on, and it's called green. Mr. Gio got up and talked about his business. He was one of the leaders in the county and going into solar installations, systems, and energy conservation measures. He's still in business, he's working, and I'm going to tell you, there's other people going into it. We've all changed our way of life. We're doing recycling. We have LED lighting that we've all put in. There's star rating on appliances. There's low-flow shower heads. If you look, and somebody can correct me here, it was 6-7 years ago where wood-burning stoves, we can't use them. They have to now be more energy efficient. Fireplaces, wood-burning stoves that you buy them. We have burn days, no burn days. Steve addressed the wildland fire protection component. It's a huge issue in the Ebbets Pass corridor also, as well as his district. We have a Calaveras Fire Safe Council that has spent over $1.2 million since 2003 in grants that they have been able to get to work in all of our respective communities. This can give them another way to leverage more funds. This is not mandated, as has been mentioned. We did get something earlier about cap and trade. I think Mr. Segali sent us. We don't want it in Calaveras County. Well, Calaveras County is not included because we don't emit those kind of greenhouse gases in any sufficient quantities to be included in any cap and trade. We have an ag element, a water element, an economic element that we've put into the general plan. And if this board has been committed to doing those three things, we should also be committed to doing the zoning update. And this county's general fund does not have $300,000 to put into that effort. And for no other reason, we should be supporting this. Again, the keys being that it's a regional issue. It's just strategies that the respective agencies that are partners in this can accept or not accept as they choose, and it will help us complete the general plan zoning ordinance update process for the reasons that have been mentioned. There was something that came up earlier about, someone said something about what AB 32 is going to do to small businesses, and having been a small business owner myself, I was very interested in that. Under the Union of Concerned Scientists that Mr. Hansen belongs to, small businesses, if they do nothing to decrease their energy use through energy efficiency over the next 10 years, they'll likely experience only a small, manageable impact. And if you keep up with just public documents in the newspaper, PG&E has a request in for pricing and energy use for similar to time of day. As a former small business owner, whenever I changed out a piece of equipment, it always became energy efficient, more energy efficient in what I use. And small businesses are very cognizant of the cost of energy. So I think there's sort of this much to do about nothing on this grant, and it will help the county to the tune of $300,000 that if we don't get it, Ms. Boyce will be putting it on the board's budget to make a decision. So I did have a change I wanted to make or recommend in the resolution. The resolution does not, under the first whereas, it does not specify what was stated in Proposition 84 in the ballot. And I would like, if the board's all right with it, to change that first whereas to match what was in the ballot that was voted on by the people of California. What was voted on and in the ballot was on top 84, water quality, comma, safety and supply, period, flood control, period, natural resource protection, period, park improvements, period, versus what we show is safe drinking water, water quality, flood control, river and coastal protection act. Those were components, but that was not how the ballot measure was written. I'd like the first whereas to reflect the ballot measure. Okay. Enough said. It's time to take some action. Is there a resolution to, is there a motion to approve this resolution and as modified, I hope?
I'll make the motion to, and it has three components. One is to adopt a motion to authorize the chair to sign the resolution authorizing filing of application for the Strategic Growth Council Sustainable Community Planning Grant and Incentives Program. And that in the whereas section that it be amended according to Marita's suggestion. The second piece of this is to acknowledge that Tuolumne County Community Development Director or his or her designee will serve as the agent to conduct negotiations, execute and submit all documents, including but not limited to applications, agreements, payment requests, and so on, which may be necessary for completion of the RAP. And then finally, to authorize Calaveras County Administrator and County Council to approve changes before submittal of grant application on or before August 31, 2010, so that they would have the authority granted by us to be able to deal with anything that would be outside of the scope of the discussions and intent of this board.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'll second that motion, but before we call for the vote, I'd like for Mr. White, Mr. George White, to come up and answer a couple of questions first, please. Mr. White, you're our planning director, and I see that this is coming to us from your department with a recommendation for approval. I just want to ask you, since we do place so much faith in you and your abilities and to guide us, and have you heard anything today that would cause you to withdraw the support for this application?
No, we're still in support of making the application. We think these funds will accomplish a number of things, mainly funding unfunded mandates from the state, but in my mind, more importantly, enabling us to bring our general plan and zoning code into conformance, as Steve had pointed out, maybe for the first time ever. I'm not really sure. And that alone, in my view, is enough to support this application. Okay. And then the other question is, as this process, assuming that we do get the money to do this work, as that work is going forward, you do acknowledge the fact that the board has the specific responsibility to review that work and to bring forth its concerns and challenge anything about the zoning work that you're doing or the economic component of this work as it goes forward. Yes. You understand it'll be scrutinized and it'll be reviewed and subject to either rejection or anything that we might want to add to it. That's understood? That's correct. The board retains complete discretion. Yes. Okay. All right. I'm ready for the vote.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Jeez. Whoa. Okay, I got it. Madeline? That was Supervisor Tuffanelli and Tryon in the negative.
In case you didn't hear.
Okay, in case you didn't hear it.
Thank you very much,
Okay.
Mr. White. Thank you, Mr. White, for those comments.
Yeah. Let's take a lunch break. Yeah, I think we need to take some.
Measure this county's coming up, Measure J, stick around.
We're going to be here till 6.
I'd like to, I'd like to reconvene the meeting, please. We're going to item 16. Tom Tryon, please.
Jeannie and I were talking about you. Give us a couple minutes. We almost have it wrapped up.
Oh, I was going to say I'll give you a few hours. Okay. This is a minute order approving various agreements with the State Public Works, Department of Corrections and Rehabilitations, and the Corrections Standards Authority. County Council, you're taking the lead on this, please.
I am. This item is brought to you jointly by my office and the administration office. The CAO and I have invested a considerable amount of time in a variety of discussions with what seemed at times like an army of state lawyers. I'd like to also thank Doug Evans from Kitchell and Captain Ballard. They've also participated in these discussions, and they've been extremely helpful. I don't have much new to bring to you. I think this arrangement and these documents have been pretty fully discussed. There's basically two documents. The Construction Standards Authority Jail Construction Agreement it obligates the county, conditionally obligates the county to construct the jail and to operate it. It's a lot of paper, but that's essentially what it says. The other agreement with the various other state entities is primarily designed to make the financing possible. Complicated documents that allow the Public Works Board to go to the bond purchasing community and show that this Public Works Board has the right to use the property, use the land, and to rent a jail facility to the Department of Corrections. The Department of Corrections will make rent payments, and it's that cash flow, that rent payment stream of income that is intended to pay off the state jail bonds, the revenue bonds. So you'll see that agreement has a lot of in draft provisions, a ground lease, and other documents that we've agreed will have to be fine-tuned later on with the help of bond counsel to make sure that the bonds are marketable. But that's really about it. We've had many discussions with, as I said, various all the state agencies, and this is where we are. I'm prepared to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, are there any questions of County Council on these two items? Are there any questions or comments from the public on these two documents?
Joe Kelly. Section 1.3 on the very front page, the state financing program. I'm still finding that there's a little bit of concern that it may not go through the interim financing through the basis of the Pooled Money Investment Account Board, that they're still looking at other ways to finance this project, from what I've been picking up other places than what's written in this. My other concern is, or concerns, and I have questions. The site acquisition on page, don't know what it is, doesn't have it. Site acquisition fair market value is approved, it states $350,000. Is that, when was that acquisition cost provided? Was that at the time of purchase of the big lot for it, or is that the current value at this time? Because it does say fair market value is approved. How large is this site? One other concern I have is on page 13, it's excess project cost, and if it would cause...
Mr. Kelly, which document are you talking about? The project delivery or the...
All I can do is give you the page because I don't have them broken down. When I print it off, it comes out, spits it out 100 and some odd pages.
Okay, that's the project delivery and construction.
So it's the bidding and construction phase of the project, Article 5, above Article 5, it's 4.3, the excess project cost. Exceeded unless participating county covenants to fund such excess with lawfully available funds and with the consent of the agency and so appropriate. This is the concern, is the lawfully available funds. So it also leads me to other issues because of the economic conditions going on. If the lending institutions holding foreclosed properties do not pay the taxes on the foreclosed homes, who's going to be responsible for picking up the slack on Measure J debt? Because we've already been told in one of the last meetings that with these values go down, those homeowners that are still there, their tax rate on this particular item doesn't stay at what was proposed to us during the Measure J ballot measure, but it now is up higher. So with these other considerations, we need to know that.
That's correct.
And then what will be the percentage or dollar amount per $1,000 or however it's measured per dollar value of the Measure J assessment? In this thing is how many correctional, because it's been such a it's going to be a smaller, it's going to be a bigger, now it's back to what it was. So how many correctional deputies will staff the new jail to meet the 90 days after completion requirement? Does the staffing number meet regulatory standards? Has an alternative staffing number been agreed to? The Power JPA, this is something that came to me recently. The Power JPA for the benefit of the county campus buildings. What is the kilowatt hour cost to the county? What is the estimated electrical energy operating cost for the facilities as described in Measure J? What is the estimated cost of solar construction for the jail project? And is the primary purpose of the solar for the jail project any secondary purposes for that solar project? What is the estimated financial savings of installing solar? What is the payback time frame based on cost versus savings versus current county kilowatt hour cost? Something I have found on San Diego Gas and Electric in San Diego County is they're looking at an issue there where they're applying for an increase in their rate because their energy use is down in San Diego County due to the coastal influence and everything else. This is a concern I have, is when we become an energy efficient area, then if this drops the energy use, the rate is going to go up. If San Diego County is going to do it, I can almost guarantee you PG&E is going to do it.
We're not a PG&E customer.
No, you're another agency, but you're under a JPA also, I believe, aren't you?
Yes, that's 32 agencies within Calaveras County. We have public power. We pay 6 cents a kilowatt hour, and that is not involved with PG&E rates. Okay. It's New Maloney's power.
Okay. So then that 6%, you
that's 6 cents.
6 cents, I'm sorry, 6 cents, sorry, thank you. With that, using that value, then how does it correlate to this solar project, the cost of the solar and the reduction, and is it not just a...
As Mr. Evans explained, and I believe you were at the study session that we had on the jail, if we have funds, we are going to install a solar system. And we will not know until we start getting the bids in, but it is proposed to have a solar system at the jail.
So then will it come back to the board again for a future
it keeps
public
coming
update?
Back to, yes.
Update, I should say?
It keeps coming back to the board frequently.
Okay, well, I'm just asking these questions now because of the last time I was here and it was talked about where to put these solar panels. One other thing on the solar panels, is there any way, since commercial businesses are now taking and using their rooftops and leasing them for solar power, Is there any way the county could do it? Maybe not on the jail project, it's the constraints of the protection of the people, but on other county buildings, to be able to do that, that would the county could use and feed for some commercial project?
We have, in the county, we have received, I believe it was a $25,000 grant. That nasty word. Is it 25 or?
No, it's actually more, like about 130.
Oh, 130,000.
It's
It
actually
was 25, okay. To do energy retrofit here at the government center.
It won't do solar,
But it's hot.
but it's for energy efficiency.
Energy efficiency. So, I mean, the design of the facility will be designed to accept solar, if you want to get back to the topic of the jail. And we leave that to the architect and the engineers for the project.
So then that 130...
That's a separate, that's for the rest of the campus.
Okay, all right. But all I'm doing is offering another concept of a flat roof, if you have them, being able to put that up and lease that space for that solar stuff, and that helps generate revenue for the county. Thank you.
Thank you, that's very creative. Is there anyone else who would like to address this? Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Gary Coons, Sheriff-elect. As you know, regarding this whole jail project, the jail, the admin building, which really is a sheriff's office, I was started out on the ground floor of this building, but both these designs, I was